Welcome to Level Up Tribes. Level Up Tribes provides resources to help you attain the necessary resources to level up your mind, body, and soul and realize your full potential. It is about exploring, learning, providing you with the tools from the experts for you to create a better version of yourself. I am your host, Agnes Goodwine, and welcome, Tribes. How have you guys been? I haven't talked to you like, when was it? Last year? Late last year, maybe? Or early?
Yeah. That long ago? Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the pandemic has not been that big of a change in our lifestyle because we homeschooled from day one of Mecca, and she's 14 now. So we were used to having her
around
home and the educational part of it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But we've had lots of friends that have had lots of transformation, lots of change because of the pandemic and having their kids home all the time.
Yeah,
Yes.
But for us, it's, just meant more outdoor exercise.
I know. I saw the pictures. You guys been going to like, what, some kind of lake?
Which one? We were in Gatlinburg, Tennessee in June, July.
That was the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee.
Okay.
But then we, I don't know, we've been biking and walking in the ocean and stuff.
Just doing it all, not being fazed by all this.
No.
Well,
we've been out as much as we have been to let us out.
I would say, applying our spiritual principles. So not that we're not being fazed by it, but digging in deeper to our spiritual principles. That's what I would say for myself.
Oh, I love it, Sandra. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Let me give you guys a good introduction before we dive deep into our conversation, because I haven't seen you guys in so long. I'm like so super excited. So I just want to talk about everything. So Sandra Jones-Keller is an intuitive pregnancy coach, spiritual energy healer, and graduate of University of Southern California. Sandra is also the author of several books: Intuitive Communication with Your Baby's Soul, 21 Lessons to Empower the New Age Kid, and How I Beat Fibroid Tumors for a Successful Pregnancy Over 40. Check out episode 25 for a more in-depth discussion with Sandra about her books and her life experience and all of that beautiful stuff. Thomas Keller is a true seeker, traveling the world studying the ancient cultures to discover the universal laws that govern our lives and how to set ourselves free. He transformed his life from wandering loner to a loving husband, adoring father, successful artist, and author. His recent book is called The Mirror: 3 Easy Steps to Free Yourself from Fear, Anger, and Anxiety. And that's just the beginning. For an overview of the book, check out episode 23 of Level Up Tribes podcast. So yes, again, welcome. I'm super excited about our topic today, and it's so needed.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. So let's dive in. And I know you guys reached out and wanted to talk about conscious parenting. And what is that? What does that look like?
We're gonna give you Sandra's definition and then mine added on to it.
And they're really one and the same. We just have a little different language for it.
True.
To me, conscious parenting is recognizing my child as a spiritual being first and foremost.
Yes.
That she's a divine intelligence with her own awareness and consciousness, and she's got her own life purpose that she's come in with. And my job as mother is to help her navigate that, be a way shower, help her find her true purpose. Create a partnership with them and stay away from my agenda or trying to have dominion over her. So it's, mindfulness, not permissiveness.
Yes.
Yes, I could not agree more. It's I believe that these our children are spiritual beings, as Sandra said, and that they have their own things in their program, most pre-programmed, that they need to fulfill. And they have to discover that for themselves. The second part of the definition is I want to be sure that I don't lay my past limiting beliefs, the way I grew up, the limitations and those ideas, I don't want to lay those on my daughter coming in, because that's a whole different generation. So we're very conscious not to do that, not to have our program with them, with our daughter. a little story that shows both the parts of the definition is my wife and I agreed we'd homeschool before our daughter was ever born. And we also agreed that we would not force things upon her to learn that were not in her, that she wasn't interested in or passionate about. We covered the basics of education, of course, but not force her to do dance lessons if she wasn't interested, or karate if she wasn't interested. We would sit back and watch her and see what she was interested in, and then we'd love and support her in those endeavors to let her reveal herself like a flower blooming.
Okay.
So that was our philosophy going in. And then around 6, 7 years old, I think I had amnesia or something, because I started to try to press piano lessons on my daughter. And I was very enthusiastic about it. I knew how to play. And I think we even went so far as hauling a 500-pound piano from my parents' house to our house in Atlanta, 400 miles. So we would have that for lessons. And I offered to give her lessons anytime she wanted. And
you bought sheet music?
Sheet music, and we piddled on the piano a little bit. But she was never really interested in it. She piddled a little bit, and she wasn't interested. So I pushed, and then she pushed back. And then finally, I let go. Yes. I let go and was reminded of our philosophy. And now she's 14 years old. And I think about a year ago, at 13, we were at the play Hamilton, here where we live.
Yeah.
And I was sitting next to her, and I seen out of the corner of my peripheral vision, like her lips were twitching. And I was thinking to myself, is there something wrong with her? What's going on? And so talking to her after the play, I asked her what was up. And she told me she was mouthing every lyric in the entire play of Hamilton that she had memorized, had known.
She loves Broadway musicals.
And I discovered she loves Broadway musicals. She can recite the lyrics to many Broadway musicals, from Hairspray to Hamilton. And she also can recite lyrics to many, many songs. And I said, how did you ever learn all this? And she just, she says very casually, just listening to music and Broadway musicals while I'm doing other things.
Wow.
And
so what did you get out of that?
What I realized was that was her passion. I didn't even know that at the time. Yes. That was her passion, was listening to musicals. And by being so passionate about it, she naturally learned all these words, the thousands and thousands of lyrics. And that was so impressive to me that I thought it was absolutely fantastic.
Without you pushing her. It just kind of just
I didn't even know about it. Yes. Yes, exactly. And it was very easy for her to learn because she loved it.
Yeah.
So conscious parenting is an ongoing practice. You set an intention for conscious parenting, and then life shows up, and then our personalities show up, and we sometimes forget that intention. But because our intention is so big and we have each other to hold accountable, then we can, support each other in going back to, letting her discover.
Yeah.
Instead of like beating her like a dead horse.
Yes, I love it. And so is conscious parenting a branch from your other teachings? I know that, Sandra, you have your teachings about empowering the new age kid, and then Thomas has his book, The Mirror. And and by reading all the books that you guys have written, it kind of connects together in bringing this conscious parenting.
It is. Mm-hmm. It actually is sort of the flip side. Conscious parenting is just an outpicturing of our spiritual practices. Mm. And so our spiritual practices came before parenting, came before anything. And so through just our practices came the conscious parenting, through recognizing my daughter as a spiritual being first and foremost. Then the conscious parenting evolved out of that.
Yes.
So conscious parenting is being aware of ourselves and working on ourselves to remove any limiting beliefs that we have, so that she is free from us imposing those limiting beliefs on her.
Yes, yes, because, and I think it was Sandra's interview, we were talking that sometimes we kind of let our ego, we think we know, and you guys said this earlier, we think we know what the child wants, but it's really based on our own story, our own upbringing, and we kind of push that onto our own children instead of letting their own essence kind of just grow organically.
So true.
Yes, definitely.
Conscious parenting, I got a feeling that we're repeating patterns from our childhood. We will raise our children the way our parents raised us, and a lot of us have issues with the way we were raised. So conscious parenting is being free of that, not repeating the same patterns throughout history.
You know, and it's also, you know, what I see in conscious parenting, it allows for a paradigm shift in parenting, so to support the kids that are being born now, you know, and so to not parent because I said so, not parent because that's how I was parented, but to really be present with the child that's in front of me. And conscious parenting also, you know, inside of our philosophy, you know, I own responsibility for what I'm seeing going on, not only in my child, but in my household. And I start cleaning up my stuff so that my child can be free. You know, I start cleaning up my fears, my limitations, my frustrations, my squash dreams, all of that, so that I'm then not dumping that on her and then being mad that she's not following what I say or doing because it doesn't make sense for her.
Really, and that just leads us into the mirror idea of the book that I wrote, in seeing our children as reflections of our own consciousness. And by doing that, we can clean up our own stuff and free our child to blossom as the flower that they are uniquely theirs.
Yeah, you know, and inside of conscious parenting, we're talking about, you know, transformation. You know, too often parents want to use punishment, but punishment will only make something go underground. It'll only hide. It doesn't really create for a safe environment to me. It doesn't create for that transformation that we're looking for. So, you know, creating a space where our child feels safe to disagree with us, to call us on our stuff so that we're all ascending and not just trying to have dominion.
Yes. What additional tools from The Mirror and The New Age Kid and the other books that you have written, Sandra and Thomas, what are the tools right now with parents dealing with their kids at home, homeschooling? What can you provide? What kind of guidance can you give?
Let me give the very basic principle in the book, The Mirror, that I wrote. Because of the pandemic, all of the kids have been pulled out of school and then they're put in home. And a lot of the parents are not used to having the children around. The children are not used to being with the parents for so much of the time in an enclosed environment. And not only that, a lot of the parents are out of their jobs, either temporary or permanent. So the parent themselves, it's a lot of stress just being home because they're used to going to work. And so being put into that quote unquote pressure cooker idea, you know, it's easy to snap at our children or snap at our spouse and vent our frustration. But there's also a divine opportunity. Believe me, even in a bizarre pandemic, the opportunity is that by being together so much of the time, things will come up within us that we not even aware that we were holding. Like our child may frustrate us in ways that we never saw before because we just hadn't been enclosed that much with them. And we can take that frustration and using the mirror, we can transform that in ourselves. Say limiting beliefs about money or whatever it would be, about health. We can transform that within ourselves. That frees us up, but then that frees our child up to not be running the pattern that was in our consciousness. So they're free, and we never have to say a word about the frustrating behavior because it disappears automatically.
Yes. What about you, Sandra?
And inside of my book, 21 Lessons, I was just thinking about, some of the lessons. And my first lesson, and this is what I do with my clients the first time, I teach them how to ground themselves. And grounding is not, oh, you're in trouble, go sit in the corner. Grounding is anchoring yourself, just like a ship when it pulls into port. The first thing it does is it drops its anchor so that it can be grounded in one place. Otherwise, it drifts back out to sea. So one of the exercises in 21 Lessons is to teach parents and to teach kids how to ground themselves so that they're calling back their own energy, so that they can start hearing their own intuitive voice, so that they can reach a level of calmness, connectedness within themselves. Yeah. And even in the book, I talk about anger. And that was one of the lessons that my daughter came up with, and I was kind of surprised. But there's 2 lessons on anger. One is the different forms of anger and how that's expressed. And then the other lesson is how to release anger. So during this time, there are a lot of people that are frustrated. And so using tools in the book, you can learn how to release a lot of that frustration, that pent-up anger and anxiety. And then I also talk about, the use of affirmations and how everything we think and say or do is literally an affirmation to the universe. Yes. And so then how to start being responsible for not only what you're saying, but what you're thinking, because that is what's going out and creating your life. So there's a lot of tools that parents as well as kids can use from the book to just help center themselves. Yes. And then I have mindfulness and meditation and stuff, but just some really practical stuff like the blame versus responsibility and decision versus choice. Yes. And they're all very easy to use. You can be done in less than 20 minutes, and they can actually be like a conversation around the dinner table. Yes. So each section has a question, and then you can just talk about it as a family.
Let me tell you one of the things that happened in our family during the pandemic. Our daughter is 14 years old, and she's not a big talker at this phase in her life. So what we do is we watch her to see what she does, how her behavior is. I watch her.
How she's feeling.
I watch her more than I listen to her because she uses so few words, which, a lot of teenagers do go through that phase. So we noticed that our daughter was having a rash outbreak that she had never had before, right?
Like, literally woke up one day like with this rash on her face, and it was almost like she had laid down on something, but she hadn't been anywhere.
Yeah, the rash broke out. So we looked at that, and
Louise Hay, Heal Your Body.
Heal Your Body. So it's what the underlying belief can be with a manifestation of a rash. Yeah. But and just as importantly, we asked ourselves what Louise said about the rash. And the rash was what?
It was frustration at delays.
Frustration at delays.
Yeah, so this happened maybe about a month and a half into the pandemic.
So what was happening was the pandemic
closed down everything.
Being extended longer than we thought it was going to be in the beginning. And so the delay, the frustration with delays was that. And so each one of us had to ask ourselves, well, where am I being frustrated? Where are this delay, this ongoing pandemic frustrating me? Yes. And of course I saw it in myself immediately, and I'm sure you did too.
Absolutely.
And then just by saying that and breathing that, it could release her because she was losing her passion. She loves ice skating and couldn't go. So that was a signal to us by watching her rash. Where are we being frustrated and not admitting it to ourselves and letting it go?
Yeah, so my suggestion for parents, especially, during this pandemic, is like, look at you, like, how are they acting? How do they seem like they're feeling physically? How are you being? Because if you start getting impatient and frustrated with them, like, oh, why don't you get up and do something? Why don't you be creative? But yet you're laying on the couch saying, oh, whoa, it's me. Then it's a disjointed conversation.
Right.
Instead of assuming that they're just sick, start looking at what the metaphysical cause is to kind of start breaking it down. And it actually took us a while to get rid of this rash. Even after my energy work, after the essential oils, after going to the chiropractor who's also an osteopath. And it just kept going on and on and on.
Yes.
You know, not being able to see her friends and do her activities.
Yes.
Yeah, and the real beauty of, you know, the benefit of being locked in like this is that our children are often our greatest mirrors, our greatest reflections of our consciousness, because they tend to be less censored than adults do, and they will say things and not be so concerned with protecting our feelings like a spouse may be, or a friend may be. So they're going to be brutally honest is the bottom line, and that honesty will reveal our own consciousness, where we're frustrated, where we're feeling delayed.
Right. But from your view and your own circle, did you recognize any stress levels or anything different about children and teenagers through this pandemic?
Well, our daughters slept a lot. You know, it got to the point where you started calling her what, a vampire or something. It's like, well, will she be up before you know, the sun sets? You know, but that was kind of her way of dealing with the lack of activity. You know, usually she's ice skating 2 or 3 days a week. You know, she gets to see her friends. We have this and that.
Right.
And so for her, it was just like, I am just going to sleep as long as I want, you know? So for her, it was sleeping. You know, other kids, they've been, you know, what I found though, is they've been real creative, like having game nights on the Zoom or something. And finding ways to connect with each other, even though they see each other.
In person,
In person, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For both of you, what made this so important to you into bringing this to the forefront to talk about conscious parenting? What was that moment or that thing that said, you know what, we really need to talk about this? What was that for you?
Well, for me, it was the whole idea of the pandemic, and that people had to pull all their kids out of school, and now all these kids and parents are together in home for so many hours of the day and not used to it. And I can only imagine just the change of behavior, of lifestyle, what kind of frustration, you know, the fear from the pandemic and then being feeling locked in for so long. What a kind of frustration and fear that probably caused in dozens, thousands, hundreds of families.
For me, it was a little different. I mean, I wrote 21 Lessons to Empower the New Age Kid, I think 3 years ago, and have developed workshops around the book and have gone to, you know, middle schools and stuff and talking to kids. And for me, it was just sharing this information. And the whole point of the book for me is to let kids know how valuable they are just because they are. And that they have control and dominion over their lives no matter what's going on outside of them. You know, even if you've got a crazy parent, because there's tools in the book that help them to ground themselves, that start showing them the power of mentalism, the power of their thoughts, the power of thankfulness. And so the power of being responsible in their lives. And so in using these tools, then they start having a sense of worthiness and power that maybe they're not getting from the outside, or maybe they feel like they have a lack of control. And then also in doing the workshop with the parents and just seeing like the light bulbs go on when people recognize, it's like, oh, what do you mean they're their own being? They have a divine awareness. It's like, oh, you know, I never thought of it that way. Like, you know, what I like to tell some of my clients is, what if you had Wayne Dyer sitting in front of you? Like, what if your child was a reincarnation of Wayne Dyer? How would you treat them? You know, here is a very enlightened soul. And so when you start framing it like that, it's like, oh, well, yeah, just because they're in a baby's body or a child's body doesn't mean they haven't been here before and they don't have this divine awareness and they aren't connected, because they are. And so this work has just been an evolution of everything for me.
Yes. And you know, I really see something really special coming out of this. I don't know what your future projects are, but I really see the mirror has to offer and what you have done, Sandra. I just see something coming out of a combination of those two, whether that is workshops for parents, whether that's another book in regards to this pandemic. Are you guys working on something in regards to that can help? I think you are. I don't know. I saw Thomas.
we do videos also. We have done like videos together on just parenting. So we've already done 10 videos together, and it's just talking about life stuff that happens with us. And they're like anywhere from 7 to 10 minutes. And like say an incident happens, and then we just talk about it on camera, and it's from our perspective, and it's how we deal with things.
Are those on YouTube?
Yeah, those are on YouTube. They're on my YouTube channel, Sandra Jones-Keller. That's my YouTube channel. One of my favorite is the difference between mom versus dad communication.
Oh,
and that was actually kind of funny. You know, and it was sparked from just an incident that happened after an ice skating competition.
Tell us.
And oh gosh,
what's that?
She said, tell us.
Okay, we'd love to.
Oh my God,
it doesn't make me look good, but I'll tell you anyhow.
Yeah.
It's real. It's a real story. So go ahead.
So my daughter had an ice skating competition, and she didn't look as strong as she had looked in practice or in several other ways.
That's feminine talk. That's my talk.
And so we went out to quote unquote celebrate. And what did you say?
I said something to the effect that
your spin sucked or something.
Your spin sucked today. Because as a guy, I was thinking, and she knew it. I'm thinking, let's get the elephant out of the room. She just had a bad competition, a bad day. That's all. And I wanted to clear the air and, not pretend that it wasn't just an off day.
And so that was an example of mom versus dad communication, because he had already, as she even says on the video, she had already expressed the fact that he had already said something, so she knew how he felt. And then we were there trying to have a celebration, and he blurted this out, and I was just sitting there shocked. But but we worked through it, and we talked through it, and
that's the bottom line.
And so we'd like to bring these real situations of how we deal with things now. Was that a conscious or unconscious moment? I don't know. Yeah. But the end result was, I think, a conscious moment. An end result was about being able to communicate, and she was very clear on how she felt about what he said.
Yeah, and it just demonstrates, not necessarily always, but a typical difference in the way a masculine and a feminine speak.
Yes.
Particularly about their own or to their own child. I was very direct.
Yes.
Short sentence and to the point. She was very flowery in her language and soft and gentle. It's
right. It's that yin and yang.
Yin
and yang.
So which is great in parenting, because then the child gets a more holistic perspective. Yes. It's like, okay, I'm going to get this from mom, I'm going to get this from dad, and that's fine. So that's the kind of thing we talk about on our videos, of just bringing our parenting faux pas to light, and hopefully laughing about it at the end.
Yes. Now let me give you another example where I look much better. We were lived in Atlanta before.
Oh, you just love hanging out with us, don't you?
Moved down here, and we were at a big mall, Lenox Mall in Atlanta, a very crowded, packed mall. Mecca was 2, 3, 4 years old.
I think 2.
Our daughter was 2 years old. And so we came into the mall. We're going to make our way to the other end of the mall to Panera to have lunch. Sandra runs off because she doesn't have to mother for a minute, and I'm going to walk with Mecca, and she loves to walk because she's very strong-willed already. So I take her hand, and we're walking through thousands of people in the mall from one end to the other. We get about halfway. We pass a Starbucks out in the middle. The smell of chocolate chip cookies baking.
Oh, you don't even know what it was that triggered.
Well, that's the only thing I can imagine. Anyhow, something triggered her, and she decided to have a full-blown meltdown in the mall, in the middle.
On the floor.
Kicking and screaming and crying at, siren volume. And
I tell you, that was one of his best daddy moments.
The best thing. the best thing that happened was I wasn't pulled off my game, my consciousness at all. I just stood over her quietly, not saying a word, silently in love with her, watching her do this, helping thousands of people walk around us. And there was nothing about me that wanted to tell her to get up. I wasn't embarrassed by what other people thought. I was more than willing to love her and let her do this as long as she wanted to. And she did. It went on for a while. And then she finally just wore out. And I helped her up and wiped off her eyes. And then we just started walking again. And we met Sandra for lunch. And you know what? She never repeated that behavior again.
Really?
Because there was there was no juice in it for her.
Wow.
And so I say that's one of his best daddy moments, because I had gone ahead and I was waiting for them, and I was like, well, what's taking so long? So I actually doubled back, and I was walking up. I'm like, oh man, some kid is melting down. And as I got closer, I'm like, whoa, that's my kid on the floor. And she was flailing, and I looked at Thomas, and he was just standing there completely at peace. And I said, I am not dealing with this. So I turned around and left. They didn't even know that I had seen it.
No.
So I turned around and left. So that's why I say that's one of his best daddy moments, because in that moment, what I saw was there was no judgment. There was no embarrassment. There was no manipulation. It was just, I love you, my daughter, and you are free to express whatever you need to express, and I'm going to sit here and wait. I'm not going to participate with you.
Right.
Yes.
And I think that was just a level of acceptance and love that a parent gives to their child that transforms them, so much so that she never bothered doing that again, because it just wasn't interesting. It's like, you know, he loves me and he's not going to get mad. So like, what is the point of doing this? So I say that's one of his best daddy moments.
You know, Mecca is very lucky to have you both as parents. And I know she picked you for that reason, right? Both of your journeys has been very spiritual in the last couple of years. You've had that spiritual growth. So you have learned the tools to be where you are today. What about parents that they don't understand the language of consciousness? They don't understand the language that's written in the mirror or the new age kid? How can you express the same language so they can know the power of discernment, to know, you know, how to deal with your child, how to deal with your own emotions and not project that to your child? How can you?
Do you have any children at home?
No, my boys are gone.
How old is your youngest child?
27.
Okay, I just try to give you a little demonstration of the mirror for practical purposes for other people, possibility.
Yes.
Just name one thing that you love about your 27-year-old that's just something you really admire. One quality or character type.
He's very assertive. So
very assertive.
Yes, he won't lie to me. He will tell me exactly what he thinks, you know.
Okay.
And so I appreciate that, because I've also learned to be a parent because of him.
Yes. So let me ask you this. Can you see within yourself, quote unquote, the mirror idea, can you see within yourself where you have that same quality?
Yes.
Okay. And because that's a positive quality, of course you can admire that self and be grateful for that quality within yourself, because he's reflecting that to you.
Yes.
Now, is there any possibility that there is anything about his personality or behavior that disturbs you?
Yes.
You know, I'm not going to ask you what it is, but I'm going to say this basic principle. Whatever that is, I know you nailed it, but whatever that is, that's a reflection of a piece of your consciousness that does the same thing. And that's why you're disturbed by it. There's other things that he does that could be quote unquote negative qualities that don't even bother you at all. But that one thing disturbs you. And if you are disturbed, that means that that same thing is within your consciousness. And in the most simplest form, if you can forgive that quality within yourself, if you can forgive that, you'll be free of that behavior or that thought pattern yourself, and your child will stop creating that for you. We'll stop showing that to you. And
Oh,
I know that's
beautiful.
incredibly simplistic, but the
Yes.
mirror is all about that principle.
What's your take, Sandra?
So, my take is, you said, make it simple. And so what I find is, when I am trying to run my own agenda on my daughter, is when I am left frustrated, angry, and when I get pushed back, because it's my agenda. And so for parents, if you're getting pushback or finding your child difficult or whatever you want to name them, then I would just look to see where your come from is. And, I'll give you an example of that. For me, Mecca was probably, I don't know, 7 years old, and we were in Atlanta, and I had just bought her this big winter coat. But then Macy's had these ski jackets on sale for $25. And I said, oh, why don't we go up to, here we go, Lenox Square again, and get you a jacket? Because it was like an alleyway. We can have lunch and we can, go shopping. And she said, she's like 7. She's like, I don't need a new coat. I need boots. Very clear, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, well, come on, let's go. So we go to the mall, and the girls' department was in the basement next to the toys. And so I'm trying to pick out these jackets, and every time I turn around, she's looking at these toys. Mm. And I am getting so frustrated. And I'm like, well, what do you think of this one? What do you think of this one? And so it just got to the point where I did the, well, if you're not interested in these jackets, let's go, that kind of thing, and did the whole huff and puff thing and started hanging up the jackets. And she said, okay. It's like unaffected by my outburst, right? And so we were going up the escalator, and I said, whoa, I said, honey, you told me before we left that you didn't want a new jacket. You wanted boots. She's like, yep. Mm. I said, oh, okay. So I was trying to run my own agenda, thinking, well, I want to get her this jacket. It's going to be fun. And she wasn't interested. And she told me she wasn't interested before we made the 30-minute trek up there. That's just one basic example of when I, as a parent, have my that I'm trying to run that actually has nothing to do with her. Yes. Because she was clear in what she wanted. Then that's when I started getting frustrated. I wanted to, God, you're being difficult. It's like all this stuff that I started making up that had nothing to do with her. Mm-hmm. She plainly just was not interested. And so I would just say, step back. If your child is pushing back and not being cooperative, see what you're trying to run on them. Yes. But that has nothing to do with spirituality or consciousness or anything.
But Sandra, you're going to have those old school parenting style, people and parents are going to say no. We're the authority, I
know. And you know what? I say to them? Because I had someone say that to me.
What?
I said, well, how is that working for you? And they said, not very well. I said, yeah, right?
Because the amount that you push is the amount of pushback you're going to get if everybody's not on board. And it's just frustrating and angry.
I had in one of the workshops, I had this mom, this huge light bulb go off where she had forced her daughter to take piano lessons. Here's the piano again, this music thing. And her daughter hated taking these lessons. Hated it, right? And she told her mother she hated it. But her mother kept pushing and pushing. And what we realized was that her mother had these unfulfilled desires to play piano, which she didn't do as a kid. So now here she was trying to push that onto her daughter. Mm-hmm. And so once she saw that, it was like, oh, okay. So you can, try that old school, I have dominion, and it just doesn't work very well.
That's true.
It just,
it doesn't work, and you're not growing, because you guys have mentioned over and over again that our kids pick us. And through that journey is because they're teaching us something about ourselves. Right. And so if we kind of ignore that journey of what it is that our children are teaching us, we're never going to get out of that funk or whatever that is. We're never going to grow.
I remember when our daughter was 2 or 3, like she used to pretend to meditate. Like, was in position with her, fingers touching each other and eyes closed and stuff. And then one day I said, "Oh, you want to meditate with me?" She's like, "No." And I had this one on, and I started getting really frustrated and disappointed. Wow, I thought she was gonna, follow in our footsteps and all that, all the stuff that I was making up. What I got to, after meditating, is that she has her own connection, and leave her alone.
Yeah.
Leave her alone, because she's got her own way of connecting with God, Spirit, the universe, and she feels that connection. And I'm meditating to get in touch with that, and she already knows it.
Yes, hence she did not need to meditate to know her spiritual self. She was naturally there.
Yes.
So me thinking that I know better, or thinking what needs to happen, is what is that based on? And there are certain things, that obviously as a parent, you have to, navigate and look at.
Yeah.
But if I can step back and say, where does my come from? Then we're all a lot happier.
Yes. Go ahead, Thomas.
Hold on, Thomas.
Let me just say this, Agnes. This thought just came up in my mind. Because of the pandemic and the job loss and the delays and stuff, there's potentially a lot of fear within parents.
Yes.
And that fear will often manifest within our children in different ways that we would not recognize, such as the rash on our daughter that showed up. She never said anything, but by looking at what was happened to her physically, we could see something was going on.
Yes.
Same thing happened when 5 years ago it was discovered I had a spot of melanoma on my face.
Yes.
I thought I had processed that because I was going for surgery. I thought I was pretty peaceful with it, and I knew the process to go through. But my daughter started having tummy aches, and this was when she was 8-9 years old. And
like everything she ate.
Every time she ate, she was having a tummy ache. And it took me a little bit of time to realize her tummy ache is a message to me that I'm not digesting this information about the melanoma. I'm not handling it well. And so she was showing her way of communicating that.
Yes.
And so, I started meditating again. And by doing that, I could become more at peace with myself, and her tummy aches went away.
Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of this, what our children may be showing us, is this fear and frustration from the pandemic.
Yes.
And often you don't have to get a clear diagnosis all as well. If you're afraid because of the pandemic, you might just consider admitting it to yourself.
Yes.
And you're not fine with it, and maybe breathing through it, or yoga, or meditate, or however you relieve stress. Start doing that more regularly, and you might be able to see a change in your child just because of what you're doing for yourself.
That is true. And that leads to my next question, because I know you guys are very passionate, creative people. Why is it important for parents to have passion and creativity in their own lives outside of dealing with their children? Well, I see Thomas' hands go up. What's going on?
If I don't have passion and creativity in my own life, then I unconsciously cut off my child's.
Yeah. Yes.
Otherwise, I unconsciously cut off my child's passion and creativity without even knowing it.
Yes.
And, I want to be a living, breathing example to her of having purpose and having joy and fulfillment of just words. And, and it doesn't mean anything. What did you want to add?
Well, I wrote down this sentence coming out of meditation this morning. The lesson is not in the language. The lesson is in living. And what that means to me is that our language, particularly with our children, means a lot less than how we live our lives. And the lessons we're demonstrating to our children. And if they see that we are passionate about whatever it is, from accounting to creating art, as long as we're passionate and following our quote unquote guidance, we're going to be alive with energy. And that's going to be more of a lesson for our children, how they can live their life, than 1,000 words repeated to them.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we want to model passion and creativity.
Yeah.
And not talk about it, because talking is just is meaningless.
Yeah, not only do our children benefit, but the parents benefit.
Yeah.
Yes. And on the flip side of that, talk about how denying yourself may lead to unconsciously denying your children.
Well, you know,
I have a good story about that.
Okay.
Okay. All of my life, well, most of my life now, I grew up in a family that had enough money. We lived middle class, and there was always just enough. And so I had this consciousness that there's always just enough money. Not an abundance of money, but just enough to live decently.
Yeah.
And so I lived that for so many decades of my life, manifesting that same pattern over and over again. And when my daughter was born, you know, I realized that I wanted to free myself of that limiting belief, because I didn't want her to have to repeat that same limitation that I've felt for so many decades. And so after Sandra and I talked, and a number of years of our marriage, I realized that I had to free my mind of budgeting money completely, because all I was doing by budgeting the weekly money outlay and the bills was limiting the amount of money that could come through our lives, because I could only think this much would come through our lives. So finally, I just was sick of my mind about this subject, and I said, that's it. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to lose my peace of mind by thinking about money and budgeting. I'm just going to put all this money into this pot, take whatever you need to cover the family expenses and gifts and whatever. And I'm not even going to look at the number anymore. I'll check about once a month to see a ballpark figure. And I really meant it, because I was sick of my brain at that point. And what happened was I almost immediately felt a great internal freedom and rush of energy. And what shortly thereafter happened was more money started flowing through our lives than had ever been possible before. By myself taking my hands off the budget and opening it up to divine flow, if you will, there was more money flowing through our lives than ever before. And my mind was much more free to enjoy peace and joy. And my daughter could see a living example of how I practically changed my consciousness right in front of her, and my wife too.
And so for me, mine's example is a little more concrete. So I had denied myself going to a cooking class at Sur La Table. I love to cook. I've been cooking for most of my life. And Sur La Table is, you know, a high-end kitchen store. And so they had a couple of classes that I was interested in, so this is actually kind of the opposite of his money story. But I thought they were too expensive. And so I denied myself going to this cooking class. So then, you know, fast forward, my daughter loves to bake, and asked me if she could go to camp at quote unquote Sur La Table.
Yeah.
And my thought was, well, that's really expensive, honey. So why don't you go to camp here? So I found a less expensive, cheap camp at the park, which she hated. And so every day I would pick her up, and it was like, oh, it was all right. So by the end of the week, she had really learned nothing. So the following year, this, you know, whole scenario came back, and she said, you know, I want to take a class at Sur La Table. And I said, yes. And she absolutely loved it. But what had happened was, and I haven't taken the class yet, but so I had denied myself taking a class there because I didn't want to pay for it. So then therefore I denied her the experience.
That's deep.
You know, and it's just that simple. You know, and I didn't see it that way at the time. But looking back, it's like, yeah, I had denied myself. So then therefore I denied her.
Yes.
And, you know, just really a clean example.
Yes.
And sometimes we have to take little leaps, you know, or big leaps. Sometimes we just have to take a leap of any kind.
Yes. And let's stay on that for a minute, because you know, in regards to conscious parenting, we talked about the relationship between parent and child, but because of the pandemic and parents being at home, some are losing their jobs. So all of this kind of interconnect together, right? So let's talk about money and the energy that you spoke of, Thomas, in regards to shifting that mentality. If there is someone listening who have lost their job, who are stressed at home with their children, what kind of momentum, what can you say to them in regards to shifting the way that they think about money?
For me, it's, you know, it's going back to square one of, you know, who is my source? And for me, it's, you know, God is my source, so that when the fear comes up, because I'm not going to say it doesn't come up, but when the fear does come up around money and what it looks like and him not working and stuff like that, then just going back to forgiving that belief in lack, forgiving that the outside world is my source. And I get that it's not always easy. And, you know, I've been on this journey for 20, 30 years. And so I still have to catch myself when the fear comes up of affirming that we are always taken care of. We are always taken care of. And that's how I deal with the fear, because I'm not going to say it doesn't come up. So when it comes up, then I have to go back to just the basics. You know, what is my source? Who is my source?
Yes.
How about you?
To be careful about our come-froms, because sometimes we can get scared when we're out of a job and used to being in a job. We can get scared for sure. And it's very understandable. And I can only recommend, instead of just jumping from fear into doing something, like I got to create this, or I got to create that, or I got to get an online web store, or I got to sell something.
Right. Let me put it this way. How do you deal with fear? And this question is for Thomas first. How do you deal with fear? When fear comes into your life in whatever sort of way, how do you deal with it?
Practice. You know, I meditate. I read spiritual books, and that's a form of practicing, because it's loading up my consciousness.
Right.
And the fear comes so much less now than it did a year ago, certainly than it did 5 years ago.
Yes.
That by loading up our consciousness, it emboldens us, and the fear doesn't even come very much anymore. I had to stop and think when the last time I was really afraid, when you asked me that question, and it's been a while.
Yeah, because I know you guys are very, like, you love to hike, you love to be in nature, you like to unplug, right?
Yes, absolutely. That's
you
a great description.
Yes, you like to unplug. So do you think that's a way of self-care?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you know, I tell my clients to get off of Facebook.
And get off of the TV news.
Because it was like, you know, I'm talking to my clients and they'll be doing great. And then they're like, well, I read this on Facebook. And then they get engaged, they get sucked in.
Yeah.
You know, if you need to check in on the news once a day,
right,
you know, check in. But, you know, being constantly bombarded with these messages of fear, it's hard to stay grounded.
Yes, so you do just the bare minimum you have to do with the media and social media and TV media, and then do get out in nature, or do go down to the beach and put your feet in the sand,
or to a park if you don't have a beach,
or to the park, or meditate.
Sit under a tree.
What our family did during the pandemic is we would have theme nights. So one night we do painting to Bob Ross on PBS, and one night we did. Yeah, one night we did spoken word and just wrote a little something and spoke it.
I love it.
Yeah, we're always playing a Monopoly one night, or card games, or Sorry another night. And so we did a theme night for a long time during this pandemic, because it was just so powerful to interact together, to be with each other, to yell at each other and laugh at each other and talk trash to each other. It's very energizing to be real with each other.
I know you guys spend so much time together because you homeschool, you know, I think you both work from home, right?
Yes.
You're both entrepreneurs. was there anything different that enhanced the quality of your relationship with each other, with your family, that wasn't there through the pandemic?
No, there was something that enhanced
What was it?
for me.
I'm trying to think. What was it?
When the pandemic occurred, there was so much fear going around. Well, I'm speaking for myself.
Yeah.
I love you
There's so
guys.
much
I love
fear
you guys.
going around, and it was so easy for me to get distracted by the fear in Facebook, by the fear on TV, by the fear on even PBS, NPR lost their mind and were just totally screaming fear in one form or another. I've never seen PBS do that before. I had to turn off PBS.
Yeah.
And so by Sandra and I talking through those early stages of the pandemic, we both really, well, we anchored each other, or she anchored me in our spiritual teachings.
Oh, I
that
love it.
it's all about vibration, our vibrations, and how we raise and keep our vibrations high, because sickness cannot occur if we're keeping our vibrations up in love and gratitude.
Ooh, say it again, Thomas.
Preach it.
Mhm.
Sickness, physical sickness cannot occur if we're keeping our vibration up high in love and gratitude. It's that simple. And that occurs because of where we place our attention. The amount of time we focus on love and gratitude is directly the result of our vibration. And the amount of time we focus on Facebook and fear is the lowering of our vibration, making us susceptible to the COVID virus and getting sick.
Yeah.
There's actually scientific studies now. I forgot the guy's name. I have it somewhere. Who talks about megahertz and, you know, like measuring your energy field in megahertz or something. And when it's above a certain level of megahertz, you know, sickness cannot enter.
Right.
And when it goes below a certain megahertz, then that's when you're susceptible to all of the things. And so how do you keep your vibration high? Laughter is one of the best ways, you know, to laugh. That immediately raises your vibration.
Absolutely.
Listening to music that soothes your soul.
Yeah, wait a minute. Yeah, just a caveat on music. Music that you find inspiring, not necessarily angry or dark
soothes
music.
your soul.
Okay. Well, she likes smooth jazz, and I like more energized music.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, sitting under a tree, walking in nature, like dancing unabashedly around your house, watching movies that you enjoy.
Yeah.
So even in the midst of what's going on in the world, you can still do self-care. And that self-care is not about what's out there. It's about who I'm being in my life, you know, taking a bath, putting the candles on. I like to cook. So, you know, I was doing a lot of cooking and, you know, setting the table, making the table beautiful.
Yeah.
So, you know, doing things that make you feel good. I mean, it's really just that simple, because when you feel good, then your vibration stays higher, and it's, you know, and it's like sickness you make your body inhospitable to sickness.
Right.
Yes.
You know, fear lowers your vibration, stress lowers your vibration, anxiety lowers your vibration. Yes. And so sitting in front of the TV being terrified, then you become a magnet for all that's out there.
I know. I know.
And I even use not social media. I use media to lift my vibration, because I go on YouTube and I look up new stand-up comedians, and I find some of the most unique, inspiring stand-up comedians that I just die laughing over, and it's fantastic. So media is not necessarily bad or negative.
Okay.
Yeah, but
that's
laugh.
Good advice.
Laugh at least once a day, one big old belly laugh a day minimum. You know, to raise your vibration.
Yes.
Yeah. And you know, and it's not about what's going on out there. We were on a call last night that has me thinking, and one person kept saying, you know, the real world. And so that really, you know, struck me. And I've been thinking today, can I see God in everything? Because ultimately that is the real world, which is love.
Yes.
You know, so can I see love in everything? And as I am able to see love in everything, then that raises my vibration, and that makes me a contribution to humanity, versus participating and lowering my vibration. And so that's my, you know, my challenge to myself. Can I see love in, you know, in him when he's not doing what I want him to do? You know, it's easy to love when, you know, they're all nice and everything, but can I see love when he's not doing what I want him to do, when my daughter's not doing what I want her to do?
It's 2 against 1 in that household.
I'm very aware of that. And can you stay loving to me when I say no to you?
Depends on what it is.
No is the key word.
It depends on what the no is about.
Oh, I love it. Oh my God.
Not only that, it's the style in which I say no.
You know, so when we talk about, you know, the pandemic and the world, and then we have the elections coming up, so there's always going to be something coming up. But, you know, my charge to me is, can I see love in everything? And I don't always. You know, I have judgments, I, you know, have criticisms and stuff. But if I can come back to where is the love in this situation, if I can, you know, just keep reminding myself to come back to it. Because, you know, to me, conscious parenting is not a, like, I got it all handled and I got it all figured out. It's being conscious moment by moment of who I'm being, where am I coming from? Like, what is this choice of, you know, this choice, and like, what is, am I coming from fear or am I coming from possibility?
Yes.
So, you know, conscious relationships, you know, where am I coming from? Being conscious in the world. Am I in love or am I in fear?
Yes.
And so to me, it's a moment by moment thing. And when I get off track, he's here to help anchor me and ground me. And I've got, you know, this spiritual toolbox that I can pull on, and this huge bank account that I've been building for the last 30 years.
Yes,
that I draw on, you know, when that fear comes up, because it's not that the fear doesn't come up anymore. It's that when it does come up, I have this bank account over there that I start like drawing on. It's like, okay, you know, what do I do here?
How would you describe that? It's not a money bank account.
Yeah, it's not a money
I just want to be clear about that.
Yes.
It's a bank account where I've got so many experiences of where divine order has intervened, that it's like, okay, so I see that on the surface it looks like this, but let me go back to when this got worked out in a way that I couldn't have imagined. Let me pull out some of that peace that I had, you know, 2 months ago. So it's building confidence in my intuition. It's building confidence in the divine order of the universe, regardless of what it may look like on the outside in the moment.
Beautiful.
I think that was off track, but oh well.
No, that was really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I get it. What is one thing that you would like our listeners to walk away today in regards to conscious parenting?
I think it just goes back to what I was just saying. So conscious parenting doesn't mean that I have it all figured out and that I'm like the bomb. It's an intention to remember that my child is a spiritual being with divine awareness and intelligence, so that when I get afraid as a mother, it's like, you know what? That's my fear. Let me give her back to God. You know, let me give her back to source.
Yes.
Because I don't want to parent from a place of fear.
Yeah.
And so I would just say, you know, look to see what your come from is, and if your fear is proportionate to actually what's going on, or if it's coming from something completely unrelated or your past.
Yes.
So, you know, to be conscious of who you're being.
Yes.
That's what I would say.
Right. And what I got from you, both of you today, is check your expectations, and kind of go inward to see if what you're reflecting is the child, or is that coming from from you, something that you need to work on.
Yeah.
Well, you'll know you need to work on it if you're disturbed. I mean, you don't even have to look. You don't have to look for it, figure it out. You just, if you're disturbed by it, it's like, oh, you know.
Okay.
And I'd like to say, if I could impart anything to parents, it is to maybe consider your child as a spiritual being that has a divine plan already within them, like a seed from a plant.
Okay.
And that you can, as a parent, you can kind of lay back and watch what grows out of them, where their interests are, what they're passionate about, what they're excited about, and then loving and supporting those veins.
Yes.
So that they can expand in those directions, as opposed to thinking, as a parent, I know everything that you need to do and learn.
Okay.
And mapping out their life from their age of 2 all the way through college.
Yeah.
Yes.
What I do now with my daughter is when we're driving up to ice skating, I'll interview her like I don't know who she is, and I'll learn things about the way she thinks. What do you think about this? How do you like that? So as if she's a new person every time.
So what's next for you both? Any new projects you guys are working on?
What's next?
Yeah.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah.
Can you tell?
Working.
Oh, absolutely. We got a few projects.
Yeah, I'm working on my next book. I've been working on it for a few years, and it's a parenting, non-parenting book. It's just, kind of stories of how we've handled things. So it's essays, just based on our experiences, and, sort of like our videos, just how we share how we did things. So it's not a how-to by any means.
I think I created a piece of performance art.
Yes.
Did I talk to you about it in our first interview? It's in a video format. It's where I created a series of paintings 10 years ago, and now I'm bringing each painting to life on a video format where they talk about their life, the lessons they've learned, and what they think overall about life.
Yeah.
And so I've completed one character, and now I'm getting funding from grants and organizations to complete out 10 characters, all different genders, all different races, all different ages. And so this will be a traveling exhibition where one can walk into a series of paintings, but alongside each painting is a video monitor. When you walk by the painting, the monitor will come to life, and that person in the painting will become the person in the video telling you their life story.
So this is in the gallery? So you'll have this in a gallery?
No, this is being created. I've only completed one person. I have 9 more to go.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
9 more to go.
Wow, that's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. It's ultimately always spiritually based. That's the...
Yes. Is there anything else that you would like to add or discuss that perhaps we didn't touch on today?
One thing one thing I've noticed,
yes,
having a teenager, is when I may feel like talking, she may not feel like talking. But there are times when she does feel like talking.
Yeah.
And when those times happen, even if they're at 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, I try to just be present with her. And so I just say to parents, they will talk. It just may not be when, you feel talking. So when she feels like talking, then I'll just hang out with her. We'll go downstairs and make pancakes and sit on the counter. I'll just be with her.
Yeah.
So, I just make myself available to when she does want to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. What about you, Thomas?
I would reiterate the idea of not trying to pull stuff out of our children to get them to talk and stuff, but to, play games like maybe pretend to interview them. I really love this idea that's happened with myself and our daughter, where I hold an air mic to her and interview her like I was on a 60 Minutes or something. Like Sandra says, we discover things of the way she's thinking that we had no idea about, and it's fantastic. It's really very interesting to get a 14-year-old's honest perspective on things in the world. So,
Thomas and Sandra, how can our listeners contact you?
Through my website, sandrajoneskeller.com. And my YouTube channel is Sandra Jones-Keller.
Okay. And my website is thomaskellerart.com. And my book, The Mirror, can be bought on Amazon. Just look up The Mirror by Thomas Keller, Keller.
Yeah, and all my books are on Amazon as well.
Awesome. It was great to see you both. I have so much love for the both of you. I love your energy, everything. So it was great seeing you. Thank you so much.
Great to see you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Please visit the website at www.leveluptribes.com. And please subscribe to the podcast and share with your family and friends. Be sure to tune in to our next episode. Catch you all next time, my beloved tribes.